Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. It's time for another episode of Spawn Daily. Today, we're going to be talking about issue 27, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I'm going to have the tiniest of nitpicks, and it's not even really a nitpick, just more of an observation. But I really enjoyed it, and I find it interesting because we talked last time, issue 26, about how the previous issues to that, the Hunt four-part storyline, really kind of laser focused on Terry Fitzgerald and Al Simmons' past and FBI and CIA and cops and mob and all the earthly enemies going after Spawn and Terry Fitzgerald. And then with 26, it felt like, oh, hey, don't forget, this is a supernatural book, heaven versus hell, eternal war, blah, blah, blah. And then this is kind of thrown in there, and I don't know, it had some elements of maybe a little bit of heaven. We didn't really learn that much about sort of the villain of the week, or to borrow a term from Smallville, if you guys remember that show back in the day, it was Freak of the Week, and
Yeah,
that's my little nitpick. Sometimes Todd throws these villains in here. We don't really get a name, and maybe he had a name and I missed it. But like the one in the Mark Silvestri drawn issue 25, where we didn't even get a name of the guy, that he felt like a Freak of the Week. So
yeah.
that's my only kind of thing. And again, we have 275 plus issues to go, and if these people do show back up, I'm sure maybe Todd's just gauging the popularity, right? Let me see how people react. If they seem to like this Freak of the Week, I'll bring him back. Then I'll think up a name. I don't know, but overall, I really enjoyed the issue, and I thought the art was really fantastic. Again, art credited to McFarlane and Capullo, but nothing broken down. It's hard to. I sort of feel like maybe in these issues where they're both credited as artists, that Todd's doing like thumbnails or just real rough layouts and Capullo's finishing it. It's really hard to tell. But story is by McFarlane. Letters continue to be by Tom Orzechowski. Colors by Steve Oliff. So yeah, I really enjoyed this issue. What do you think, Rocky?
Well, I agree with you that it's interesting that we're getting sort of another, almost feels like a throwaway character again, and this
Right.
time in this
Yep.
character of Curse, and
Curse.
he's
He did get a name. You're right.
yes, he got a name, yeah, Curse, and which is good. It's because it sure makes it easier, as I said when we review, to be able to say a name of a character because it's
Yeah.
not easier. But yeah, we know he's a character that is looking in the entrance into heaven, and he figures that maybe if he kills a spawn or if he kills a demon, he's all about the power of faith and truth, and he really wants to please his God, and he certainly considers himself an agent of heaven, and he's kind of a fanatical about it, and he seems to have his own following of street people, just like Spawn does as well, which is interesting. So again, interesting elements here. At least we get a name this time. Not the central narrative itself, in terms of moving the narrative forward, in terms of what Wanda is doing and Terry Fitzgerald investigating why the FBI, CIA, and mob are after him. That sort of drags on a little bit. A lot of the repetitive exposition again. So kind of the same tropes of McFarlane that he's had in previous issues. But this Curse, I like elements of this Curse story, and certainly we'll get into it once you start talking about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad you pointed that out, because I think a lot of the flaws are still there. Maybe I'm just getting used to them now, or that I don't call them. I don't even nitpick on those things anymore. But
Yeah.
then when you mention it, it's like, yeah. And again, when we get into the kind of the synopsis here, we'll talk about it, because a couple of things are just like, no, that wouldn't happen. But my brain's going, well, it's McFarlane. In McFarlane world, it does happen. So don't even think about it very much. Because yeah, one thing with the files and Wanda helping out. And another thing that you mentioned about Curse, yeah, and I totally remember now that you say that he did get a name in giant lettering from Tom Orzechowski. Uh, he actually has something in common, and we'll talk about it, something in common with a very popular character this week, a very popular DC character who's making plenty of headlines this week because his apparently his TV show debuted on HBO Max, and I'm talking about the Peacemaker. So obviously, Peacemaker came. He was actually a Quality Comics creation, and DC bought Quality Comics, and that's how he ended up. He never was in Peacemaker was never in the proper DCU until after Crisis, which brought those quality characters into the main Earth when after Crisis on Infinite Earths, when there was only one Earth. That's when Peacemaker finally started showing up in kind of the main DC continuity. Obviously, this was years after Crisis, so but we'll talk. We'll get there. We'll talk about what he has in common with Peacemaker. So fantastic cover to start off with. A lot of negative space and Spawn with a giant hole in his chest there. Not the first time we've seen Spawn with a giant hole, but one thing I like. I mean, it is a striking cover, but one thing I like, unlike covers of today, a lot of times the Spawn covers actually tie into what's actually happening in the comic, which is a little more rare these days. So anyway, the story starts off, we're in Massachusetts. We see a robed and hooded figure. He's kneeling before an altar. It looks like a statue of Jesus there. There's candles burning. He's praying. He's talking about testing his faith and accepting this test that he feels that that God apparently or Jesus has put before him based on the context. We see there's a bulletin board on the wall that has a bunch of articles pinned up that talk about rumors of Spawn and Spawn on a rampage, blah, blah, blah. And we see him on the next page packing up what looks to be some very advanced technological weapons. This figure mentions having to use technology from the secular world or the non-religious world, which confuses him. Like, if he's praying, clearly this is a man of faith. He's got a rosary hanging from his rearview mirror when he's driving in his car as he's praying the whole time. So very devout, pious man. But if he's got this much belief, he's sort of probably thinking, or the impression I got is, why doesn't his God that he's praying to grant him powers, right? And like normally you think, well, you're crazy, but actually in this world of Spawn, there is agents of heaven that will grant abilities and powers. Maybe this guy's just not all there. But another thing that you'll notice as he's packing up and as he's driving his car, you only see his left hand. That'll be important in a little while. As he lands in New York, apparently from a private plane, we do find out his name's Mr. Kron. And he does mention, why have I been cursed? So again, as he goes through, he's walking the streets, probably trying to find those alleys where Spawn is. You'll once again notice you only ever see his left hand as he pays the cab driver, as he's walking down the streets. He's got bums, winos, whatever you want to call them, that are asking him for money, begging him for money. He's being solicited by prostitutes and constantly praying the whole time. Forgive them, Father. They know not what they do, which is actually a quote from Jesus in the Bible. So meanwhile, and this is a little bit of a jump ahead here, we have Spawn who's kneeling down next to the body of his friend Bobby. This Bobby being the same one that sewed Spawn's face up with the shoelace. And Spawn mentions another man died because I did nothing. And when he means another man, it's because we know last issue that when he refused to help the guy who had his daughter taken away by the courts, that guy committed suicide. Now we find out that Bobby has died, but we're like, wait, what happened? We didn't see this. Last time we saw Bobby, he was fine. And Spawn references Chapel. Chapel couldn't have cared less. The idiot blew his own head off, so apparently Chapel even committed suicide. But apparently it happened in Youngblood issues 8 and 10. And Spawn's pissed off because he didn't get a chance to kill Chapel himself. So again, weird how these things all line up with, Youngblood's only on issues 8. And then apparently, I don't know, fill an issue with 9. So 8 and 10 are the issues that you want to refer to if you want to see what happened between Chapel, and Spawn must have appeared there as well, obviously Bobby, whereas Spawn's all the way up at 27. But I mean, this to me, this was one of the guys that Spawn was, really close to. He's friends with all of them and feels a sense of protectiveness over all of them. But I mean, not all of them have names, but Bobby did. And based on the fact that, Bobby helped them out, they had some conversations that were a little more in depth. He was closer to Bobby. I mean, this has to bother Al Simmons quite a bit.
Yeah, I agree. What bothers me as a reader more, though, than Bobby dying, is the fact that I'm actually a little annoyed. I'm very annoyed, actually, that Chapel is killed in another comic book. Chapel killed Al Simmons. And it's, I can, I can appreciate for back in the early '90s. They want to pump up. I mean, Youngblood was a popular series. It sort of frustrates me that Chapel dies, kills himself in the pages of Youngblood. I realize that crossovers were common, but I think Chapel is a significant enough character in the origin of Spawn that, him killing himself would be. I don't know why Chapel killed him. Chapel killed himself. Was it out of a sense of guilt or some kind of redemption? I have no idea, but it would be precisely that type of action or behavior of a character that would be perfectly in keeping with this Spawn narrative, this origin. So I would have, I'm frustrated, and I want to actually pick up. I actually want to read Youngblood issues 8 and 10 just to get a handle on Chapel, and I'm hoping that Chapel will return at some point. He probably will, but it just feels like a huge disappointment to me because, I mean, Spawn went to all that trouble to scar his face by giving him a real skull and on Chapel's face, and it just seems like almost like a waste of a character, especially since McFarlane's gone out of his way to have Spawn not kill other villains in this comic, but then Chapel dies in another comic. It's kind of frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, kills himself. Spawn doesn't kill him, but I agree. But I was frustrated by this too. I'm like, wait, I wanted that should have happened here so I could see it. But I get it, right? Like I understand what they were going for, and they were trying to create when Image first started. They were trying to create a connected universe. I honestly I can't hold McFarlane, responsible for this. The fact, like I said, that it's Youngblood 8 and 10 when Spawn's all the way up at 27. I'm sure McFarlane would have loved to have had Youngblood coming out on a monthly basis and be able to tie into it and help build something. I mean, for God's sakes, he's trying to build a Spawn universe now. This could have been a connected shared superhero universe 30 years ago if the other guys could have pulled their weight and put out their books on time. So I'm frustrated by it as a fan and as a reader, but at the same time, my frustration isn't with McFarlane because I get what they're trying to do. But I also think that, I mean, Rocky, you and I know that we get constant recaps and flashbacks and exposition constantly in this comic. So if it's this important, you couldn't give us 2 or 3 panels
Exactly.
summing it up. No, you turn the page and Bobby's dead. Like, really?
Just draw us a picture of it, but they just put it in the exposition. I mean, 2 great artists, Capullo and McFarlane, and they can't even render an artistic image or an image of the scene of Chapel blowing his head off. I mean, that would be gory, graphic. That would be perfect for a Spawn comic.
Yeah. So,
anyway,
as we turn the page, the guys are like, "Well, can't you do something about it?" And Spawn's like, I'm not a god. I have power, and they're like, but you're magic, you can't you do something? And Spawn, again, he's like, you know what? This is how much he means to him, as much as he doesn't want to give these guys false hope. He talks about his power, giving everybody a false message. He tries it anyway. He says, I want to see if Bobby can do something for me. And they're like, like what? And he says, live. And it's a fantastic splash page with a couple of insets where he's I don't want to say he looks like I was going to say I don't want to say he looks Christ-like or anything like that. What he looks like, honestly, is Dr. Frankenstein. Rise, live, with his arms outstretched and all.
It's alive. It's alive.
Yeah, exactly. It's, again, a fantastic image, and it works, right? Despite the fact that apparently Bobby had been shot in the head, he's like, yeah, what a trip, and he's alive again. So Spawn's very weakened. We get a counter, used up quite a bit of his power there. We're told that his body's shuddering, he's in pain, but beneath his mask, he smiles because even though he lost valuable energy, he gained back some respect. Because sometimes things don't go. He doesn't always get along with these guys. They do sort of ask for a lot from him, and let's be honest, Al Simmons and his Spawn persona is pretty moody. You can catch him at the wrong time. He kind of goes
and
all emo on you.
he's still riding a guilt trip for the death of that Mr. Barnett last issue,
Yep.
the guy that lost custody of his daughter, and Spawn wouldn't help him, and he ended up committing suicide. So he's at a low point, and having lost his friend Bobby, you can understand he's just maybe at a low point, saying, screw it, let's use this power that Houdini, the magician, trained me to use masterfully in a couple issues, 3 or 4 issues ago, and yeah, it was good. I actually was curious. I never had time to look at what the counter was previous, but the counter's at 7012, whatever it was before. I think it was at like 78 something. So I figure it's about 8. He loses about 800 points every
Yeah,
time
I
he
think it might
resurrects
have been.
somebody.
I think it might have been a 6.
Oh, was it?
But
Okay, so
yeah, but
500.
but either way, I mean, I didn't look either, but that I seem to remember it was like 7612. But either way, I mean,
Yeah,
he uses up over, like if you think of it as 1,000, which
yeah,
is kind of the way I read it, 7,012. I mean, that's a significant, whether it's 6, whether it's 8, that's a significant chunk,
yeah.
like more than he uses when he teleports or any of that kind of stuff. So he really used up quite a chunk to bring Bobby back. But I mean, human life is sacred and probably
Yeah.
worth it. So anyway, next we move on to the home of Wanda Blake. She's got her kid there crying, who apparently she's tired, needs to go down for a nap. But she's talking to Terry on the phone. Terry's talking about trying to figure out exactly what's going on. He's investigating who was after him. Everybody's letting him do it, which is strange enough. And they reference it later on, but he's like, yeah, it looks like Jason Wynn is involved somehow. Anyway, I'm bringing these files home, 57 of them. And again, like he works for, it's above the FBI. It's above the CIA. It's, USSG, United States Security Group, second only to the cabinet
Yeah.
ministers and the
president.
president. This is like a top secret organization, but he could just bring files home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I'm like, wait, what?
yeah.
So anyway, he's like, yeah, I'm going to do a little more work with these files, and then I'll see if I
Well,
can't catch the boys with their backs
well,
turned.
it's one step further because even though this was in 1990, probably 93, 94 when this
Yep.
issue came out, they still had computers back then, or at least discs. I mean, I can't imagine all this would actually be in files. I mean, even back then, I would have thought, you're not bringing 57 files home, and it just, again, it just seemed a little bit kind of funny, but whatever.
So we turn the page, and again, like we're dropped right in the middle of the fight, right? Like we just see this energy blasting, popping out, going right through Spawn, whatever you want to say, with a voice saying, "There he is, sire." And this is when we see Curse for the first time, who looks like he has a giant cannon on one hand, has some other sort of homeless-looking guys behind him saying, this guy was a scab. He thought he owned the alleys instead of the others. And it's mentioned that Spawn's weak in state because he just used a ton of his power to heal Bobby, that both Spawn himself and his costume were ill-prepared to protect themselves. So this guy, Curse, is like, well, I guess he didn't have any faith because a true believer wouldn't fall so quickly, especially not to mere human technology. And maybe I made a mistake. I thought this guy maybe had powers from the Lord, from heaven. But obviously he's not from heaven because he doesn't have divine powers. He wouldn't have died so quickly. He must be just an agent of Satan. And he goes walking off. So the other guys, including Bobby, who just got resurrected, is like, man, did you look at the size of that hole? And Spawn, he has a gaping hole. But again, you wonder, so what? He's made of psychoplasm or necroplasm or whatever McFarlane's calling it this issue. And it's his organs don't actually do anything, right? Just like when he got shot in the knee, his knee doesn't actually do anything, right? It's only the simulacrum of a body. So anyway, the guys are like, well, his cape's moving. Is he dead? Is he not dead? Well, let's move him out of the way. So at least he's not in the middle of the alley. And so they all grab his cape, all four of them, and they start pulling, and they can't move him. He's just too heavy. And we're told by McFarlane that Spawn weighs nearly 500 pounds. So apparently Spawn's put on 100 pounds since the last time we were told of his weight.
I
And
laughed out loud. I laughed out loud when I read that because I knew you and
yeah,
I would get a kick out of that because in
yeah,
two separate issues, McFarlane goes out of his way to say he weighs 400 pounds, which is
yep.
insane. And now he's suddenly, apparently, when he's dead and he has half his chest blown out, he weighs 500 pounds. I mean, come
Well,
on.
I figured he must have been like pounding down a lot of Twinkies lately or something. You know, he's eating something that's putting on the poundage.
Well, apparently, resurrecting somebody back to life puts, you gain weight from doing that. Apparently, I don't know.
Yeah, or maybe maybe he hasn't dropped a deuce in a while, so
Yeah.
he's building up. But we are told, and we did speculate that about the density. I guess it's back to cytoplasm because instead of necroplasm, because it does say right here, having a body made of cytoplasm with a density greater than cement will do that. So,
Yeah.
There's confirmation there that the cytoplasm that he's made out of is very dense. So they're trying to figure out what they can do. Maybe they can go get some more help when they hear some sirens. So we're like, oh, now what's going on? Meanwhile, Terry has come home. He's got the big giant stack of files next to him, and it's not enough that he can bring these files home. It's not enough that the police and the mob and the FBI were after him. Also the CIA, which, again, we sound like a dead horse here, but FBI cannot operate inside the borders of the United States, but that doesn't matter either. Wanda's talking about how she's going to help him. So it's not enough of a security breach to bring all this stuff home. Because, maybe he does have clearance, even though I can't imagine he's got clearance to take it out of the building, but maybe he does.
Yeah.
But there's no way she's got clearance. She doesn't work for the USSG, but apparently she's going to help him find out who it was that was after Terry. And meanwhile, Terry's kind of McFarlane's using Terry's language to once again give us some exposition and remind us of everything that happened, including the fact that somehow that costume guy Spawn knew his name, which is really spooky to Terry. So again, that question, open-ended question that Rocky and I have, who's going to find out first that Al Simmons and Spawn are one and the same? Will it be Terry? Will it be Wanda? Will they find out together? Guess we'll have to wait and see. So,
and the funny thing is that if Jason Wynn was really looking for a way to frame Terry Fitzgerald with something, he could literally, you'd think he'd be able to frame him, or he doesn't even have to frame him. Surely, as you said, Terry Fitzgerald has violated some protocol by taking these top secret files home with him to go over with his wife. I mean,
yeah.
Around the kitchen table while they sip wine and reading about national security secrets. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and she even acknowledges. I mean, this is McFarlane's way of saying it's okay. Well, aren't you going to get in trouble for taking these files? Not really. Something's got people acting weird.
Who's going to know? There's no security.
Yeah, it's trying to forget what happened, that I was on the agency's hit list. Whatever. They're scared, or somebody's got something on one of the big boys. I don't know. It doesn't ring true at all. So meanwhile, back in the alley, the sirens they heard, there's this cop who needs to get through the alley, and he's like, hey, what's going on? Why is this body in the way? What's wrong with your buddy? And they're like, oh, he just had a little too much to drink. And the guy's like, well, get him out of the way. I need to get my car through here. Well, we know they can't move him, right? He's too heavy. He weighs 500 pounds. But what they did was, as soon as the cop showed up, they sent one of the guys off in the other direction, and he screams real loud. Apparently his name's Jimmy, and he can scream like a woman very easily. And it gets the cop to lead the way that he came. So they do manage to get some help. They sort of move Spawn out of the way. Meanwhile, the guy who was in the armor earlier has removed his helmet, Curse, and he's doing some preaching. He's talking about, hear me, brothers. The place you live has so much evil, and there's too many unbelievers in the streets. You need to protect this. You need protection from the sinners around you. You need faith, blind, unquestioning faith. Hear my tale. This guy, he looks pretty creepy. He's got a bulging eye, big old scar. So we're told, and this is where I'm talking about the similarities with Peacemaker. We're told that peace, it was all he desired when he was a boy. So much like Peacemaker, all this guy wants is a little peace.
Yeah.
So it does beg the question, then why are you going around blasting holes in people? But
yeah,
we'll leave that alone for now, and we'll give the guy's origin. So he wanted peace so bad that he prayed for it, and nothing ever happened. And so he realized that there was so much injustice, and the peace he dreamed of was so distant. He realized he must give something up, like personal sacrifice to God, so that God will answer his prayers. So he takes a sharp stick and he gouges out his left eye, like you do, right? You
Oh,
make a
sure.
sacrifice. I'll just blind myself. I'll just gouge out my eye, and leave a scar on my face that's deep enough to remain there forever.
Yeah.
And then he continued to pray, and his prayers still went unanswered. So he thought, well, I have to give more. An eye is not enough. So without hesitation, he sacrificed his right arm, and that's the image that we see, the silhouette. He used an axe to chop off his right arm, which is why in those early panels, all we ever see is his left arm. And the doctor said I wanted attention and that my actions defied logic, and the doctors were right. Why wasn't this guy, the kid, teenager, I'm assuming, somewhere in there, why wasn't he locked up, Could
Yeah.
you not lock him up in a straitjacket because he only had one arm? This guy's clearly nuts. But regardless of that, he said they missed this guy, Curse, saying they missed the point. The point was truth. I wanted to find truth. The truth would be found through faith, not logic. This is all too, if you live in the world, and especially the United States in 2021, this fundamentalist garbage, it's all too familiar. So he's like, you know what? They couldn't understand, so I decided to flip the script, and I lived the way they said I should. And I went to college, and I started a business, and I got rich, and I used my money to build myself a new, stronger arm, and I became even more resilient. As he says this, he lifts up his arm. We see that his right arm has been replaced by that giant cannon, the one that he used to blow a hole through Spawn. And now he awaits the blessings of God and God's truth. And I mean, this guy's just a zealot and a nut job. So as he's preaching there, his right arm, the cannon or whatever that blew a hole in Spawn, is destroyed. And we see Spawn standing there. Apparently he found those weapons. I mean, it doesn't look like either one's the actual ion cannon, but I don't know. He's got weapons from somewhere. Maybe he's got a stash from all those weapons he took from the warehouse way back when. And he says, let me give you some advice. Make sure your enemy is completely dead before you walk away. Otherwise, you'll think you're being chased by a ghost. So apparently Spawn not dead, although still has a hole in him. Big, giant, gaping hole. And the guy's all upset because his arm was destroyed. And so there's a bit of a battle, and it's not really that much of a battle. It's more like in typical Spawn fashion, this guy's kind of beating up Spawn until, I don't know, like a Spawn the Hulk, it seems like Spawn takes a beating to start every fight before he then turns the tables, gets mad. And in this situation, when the guy thinks that he's knocked Spawn out again, he turns his back on Spawn, and then Spawn jumps up and kicks him in the back, saying, "Eat me, old man," and starts just relentlessly pounding on the guy. So much so that Spawn's friends are like, back off. We're not going to let you lay another hand on him unless you intend to go through us, which is kind of interesting. Like, these guys are like, are they trying to save Al from himself, from beating this guy to death? Or is the brutality that Spawn has? I mean, it's not quite clear. It felt kind of strange. It would seem to me that these guys would just let Spawn beat the crap out of this guy.
Well, I got the impression that he had friends, that some of them like Curse, because there were other people in the alley that didn't, because Curse has some other friends in the alley, because at the beginning of the issue,
that's true. He did have the people he was preaching to that maybe were coming around to his side.
Yeah, and the thing is, it should be noted that this Curse isn't going around killing people. He's actually forgiving people. He's he's a preacher. He's not really, he wants to kill Spawn because he views Spawn as a demon, but it's not like he's going around like murdering random people like some of the other fanatics. He's clearly a religious fanatic, but he's not a murdering psychotic, other than he just wants to kill Spawn. I got to give a quick shout out. One of my favorite lines when he says, when Spawn shoots his arm off, Curse says, "My arm, you've destroyed it. How dare you?" And I can't help but note the irony that apparently the only person that can cut off Curse's arm is Curse himself. But if somebody else blows his arm off, he gets really upset about it.
Yeah, exactly. Spawn could be like, "I'm just making sacrifices, man."
Yeah.
So anyway, on the next page, here we see Wanda clearly breaking the law. She's going through all the files. She's talking it over with Terry. Terry's like, yeah, you can see that somebody planted all this false information about me having to do with the theft of some hardware. And Wanda's like, yeah, and there's some kind of mafia tie-in, and they're speculating on whether it's some kind of a illegal arms sale or what exactly is going on. So Terry takes a little break. He's putting Cyan to bed, and Wanda tells herself, Terry's gone through so much trying to piece this together, and trying to hunt down the CIA or FBI or whatever. That's way out of my league. But this Spawn character, like he knows Terry, like he knew Terry's name. Maybe that's something that I can figure out. Maybe I can focus on that. So it's a little foreshadowing. Goes hand in hand with what we were saying before about who's going to find out Spawn's true identity first. So again, McFarlane keeps throwing it, and I love that he's doing it, right? He keeps saying, oh, look, Terry's thinking about who the true identity of Spawn could be. Now Wanda's thinking about it. We still don't know which one's going to find out first. So on the last page here, we see Spawn. He decides he wants to get this cursed guy so bad. He doesn't care who's getting in his way. He's beyond caring about who's in his way, is the way McFarlane puts it. His thirst for revenge has consumed him, and no one will stop him. So it ends with his hand around the throat of Curse as the homeless guys, even some that were friends and were talking to Spawn, in the alley where Bobby was killed, that just at the beginning of the issue, they're all trying to pull Spawn off of this guy. So it says the end, ? Clearly not the end. And I haven't read issue 28, but I'm assuming it's going to pick up right where this one left off. So yeah, like I said at the beginning, a little bit of a freak of the week. I don't know how much this Curse guy shows up again after this issue, but yeah, I mean, it's fleshing out the character. Like I said, Al Simmons does seem to be a pretty moody guy. His mood swings seem to be pretty epic.
Yeah.
I
don't
blame. I guess we're getting more context.
Yeah, I don't blame Spawn for getting pissed off here. But I wonder
if it blew a hole in him.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. But I also think maybe it serves part of the larger narrative, because one of the things that Malbrosia stated in a previous issue, I think it was last or the second last issue, where he was telling the other Hellspawn about, why did they pick Al Simmons? It's because Malbrosia picked Al Simmons to be the Spawn, the Hellspawn, because he's got apparently Al Simmons has a capacity for evil that is greater than a lot of people's. And perhaps maybe Al Simmons' actions here in going through his own friends, plowing through his friends, is giving some small hints at just how insane Al Simmons' Spawn can become. Maybe this is just a little bit of a hint of that. My other observation here is I'm wondering why the forces of heaven aren't recruiting Curse. This Curse character he's human. He's human. So and he's already fanatical, and he's human. He doesn't need to be manipulated. He doesn't need to be brainwashed. He's already brainwashed himself. He's already shown his commitment by taking his own eye, cutting off his own arm. And we know the forces of heaven can probably, have their own form of probably psychoplasm or whatever to just like they did with Jason Wynn. Why recruit Jason Wynn when you got guys like Curse this Curse whose real name is Mr. Kron? Why not use him? So it's kind of curious here that we not only have heaven and hell involved, but we got just natural humans like Mr. Kron, i.e. Curse, who's just as fanatical and is just as powerful and a potential threat to Spawn, and he just uses ordinary weapons. Couple of shout outs I want to give again that I love. McFarlane, Al Simmons he just likes to curse. I mean, at one point here, Al Simmons actually insults Curse by calling, I don't know who sent you, but whoever sent you, Curse, is one sick puppy, suggesting that God himself is a sick puppy. And that just sends Curse into enrages Curse. I just love the dialogue here. It's literally like two bullies in high school getting into a fight, and of course before the fight, you got the bad mouthing back and forth, and anyways, I love the art. I mean, there's a solid here of like 4 or 5 straight pages of just fantastic art, and again, it's great. It's both McFarlane and Capullo on the art. I'm not sure exactly, I guess we'll credit them both, but just really great art, great action scenes. The colors just pop off the page. This is good stuff. I really enjoyed this. And I'm I'm actually curious. I would like to see Curse again because I think Curse is not evil. He's fanatical, but I think Curse could be a potential ally to Spawn at some point because I think I don't know. Curse is maybe a wild card here, but you know, at this point, like you said, McFarlane's propensity for creating these characters out of nowhere, and this one, at least we got a name for Curse. We never got a name for the one character before. Um, Again, I McFarlane has me intrigued. He pulls me in, and kudos to McFarlane that he. I mean, clearly he had the discipline. We're at issue 27 here, and when you back in the day, I imagine back in the day, in that same period of time, Youngblood only has 8 or 9 issues out of that period of time. You can see the commitment that McFarlane had. That even if McFarlane never had the time to contribute to his own creation, he at least had the wisdom to get other writers and artists involved to make sure that Spawn came out with relatively few delays. And in any event, I enjoyed this for this particular issue. It says the end. The final page has the end, and it has a question mark. And I haven't read the next issue yet, so I'm actually kind of curious to see what the fate of Curse is going to be.
Yeah, and kind of on that note of late books, yeah, I mean, it's not like Spawn came out every single month. There were months where it was late, and then like we talked about before, 19 and 20 got skipped. And I actually got a message on Twitter from Ed Moore, who said originally issues in 19 and 20 were skipped. 19 was later published between 24 and 25, and issue 20 was published between 25 and 26. So they skipped 19 and 20. They published 21, 22, 23, 24, and then published 19, and then went 25, and then went 20, and then went 26. So not we don't want to confuse anybody. But yeah, just sort of a product of these late books. But again, I mean, compared to especially the Liefeld properties, but I mean everybody's books. The Savage Dragon was late. Wildcats was late. Shadowhawk, like they were all late.
Yeah.
These guys really bit off more than they could chew, and also, and I've defended them before in the past as well, because again, they were getting a lot of offers to go do this Hollywood stuff, and they were young at the time, and you take these meetings and you're being, wined and dined, and money's being thrown at you, these agreements that could be worth millions of dollars. You can understand how their focus could waver. So anyway, yeah, I really enjoyed issue 27. I should also mention I got my other Spawn shirt that I'm rocking. I think I like this one even better. It's real classic, even better than the other one. Plus, it's the long sleeve jersey style. I really like this, so I can't wait to rock this at a con. I'm
going to have you stand up one more time. I think I may have missed you. Just stand up one more time for the people on YouTube here. There we go. Nice. Looking
so good. Yeah. Got it from Amazon, everybody. If you want to rock your Spawn Daily shirt while you listen to us, we encourage that. So yeah, if I get to any shows this year, have to wear this on one of the days, especially if it's a colder show. Like I said, it is long sleeve. So anyway, that's gonna do it for this episode, everybody. Really appreciate you guys joining us. Don't forget, we have some interviews coming up pretty soon. I was supposed to have an interview with Jerry Conway, but unfortunately there was a scheduling mix-up, so that'll be coming out soon. We're going to be talking to Jeremy Adams. And speaking of Jeremy Adams, there was some big news that dropped yesterday about a sequel to Flashpoint written by Jeff Johns, Jeremy Adams, and Tim Sheridan. So
yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah, we'll have to, I've already reached out to DC about doing an interview with Jeff Johns, and I'm sure Jeremy won't be able to say much, but we're going to bring it up. We'll
absolutely we are.
Pick his brain. Yeah, we'll see if he can, say anything at all about it. So that's coming up pretty soon as well. So, and what else do you have going on? Anything you want to mention?
Well, I got tomorrow night I'll be guesting, or tomorrow morning I'll be guesting on Chillmonger's channel.
Well, that'll be today.
Or I guess today when this
released. Yeah,
right,
on Saturday.
Right. I'll be on Chillmonger's channel. That's Chillmonger, Chillmonger, and we're going to be answering 33 burning DC questions, and so that'll be at I think 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time on Saturday, January 12th. So that's the next thing I got coming up.
Fantastic. Well, we also have more Spawn Daily coming. We haven't missed a day yet.
Certainly.
Knock on wood. So look for that as we continue to cover Spawn. And as we've said before, I'm highly entertained. I'm sucked in. We were doing this to help celebrate the 30th anniversary of Spawn, and to get caught up on up to the most recent Spawn stuff that's coming out, because Scorched, the last of the new Spawn number ones, which was actually supposed to come out last year, but because of paper delays and whatnot, so that finally launched, and it sold. King Spawn sold almost 500,000 copies. Gunslinger Spawn was like 385,000 copies, and Scorch sold over 270,000 copies. So McFarlane's doing huge numbers on these books, but also keep in mind he's doing some really, really rare variants. Like there was one variant I think was limited to only 300 that my local comic shop got 2 copies, and they're numbered and signed by McFarlane, and they're $750 each. And so that definitely helped pad the numbers. But be that as it may, Spawn continues to be a popular property. McFarlane continues to be a very popular creator. The other thing, and I should mention, and I don't even know if you know this, Rocky, but there was another big McFarlane thing that was released on Friday, the 14th, through Target. So that very famous Todd McFarlane cover from Batman Year 2, there is a action figure of that from Target that got released. I think it was at 7 a.m. Pacific. So I don't know if you're curious to go check it out. I think it's like $50.
Batman Year 2? You mean his Batman cover?
Yeah, his Batman cover. Yep.
Oh,
there's
with
an
the cape?
action figure with the giant cape. Yeah.
Ah, yes. Oh, that was finally released. Yeah, because I saw him make that. I saw his promotional video for that.
Yeah.
So
they did a pre-sale a couple months ago that sold out in a matter of minutes, and then today it's like officially released. Like you might be able to go to Target and find one, or you can go online and
good luck.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm just the reason I bring it up is just to remind everybody. I mean, McFarlane's been doing this for a long time. He's beloved. Right or wrong, whether you think he's a great creator or not. Obviously, we see some flaws in his writing, but there's no denying the man has a following. So
he does, and he knows how to. I love McFarlane, man. He's passionate about comics. He loves the fans. He interacts with fans. It's all about the fans. And look, you can you can say, well, he's just catering to a speculation market, and he's doing this, he's doing that, he's artificially inflating the numbers by doing 1 in 250 variants, or ratio variants of 1 in 50, 1 in 100, wait, man, that's all part of the business, and it gets the fans in invested, and there's a lot of people who are collecting that, so he's catering not only to the fans of the character, but fans of the market itself, because speculators are collectors too, and he's capturing all facets of the comic book industry. And so, hey, man, all the power to him, because there's a lot of talk and debate about are comics dying or not. Well, I tell you what, whether they are or not, Todd McFarlane isn't, and neither is Spawn. Oh, sorry, your volume went out.
Yep. So I mentioned 500,000 copies of King Spawn, 370,000 copies of Gunslinger Spawn, 270,000 copies of the Scorch, and you think, well, that's a lot, it's inflated because he did all these ratio variants or whatever. Keep in mind that those numbers don't come close to what the first Spawn actually sold. And for the first 10, 15 years after Spawn came out, you could find it in a dollar bin, but can't find Spawn number ones in dollar bins anymore. And what did we say it sold? Like 1.7?
Yeah, 1.7 million, I believe.
Yeah. So even if we're talking about, the highest one, King Spawn last year was only 500,000. So it might not be worth a lot now, but in 25 years, 30 years.
Yeah.
So Anyway, who knows? Who knows? Maybe by that time we'll be doing another Spawn Daily for the 60th anniversary.
Yeah, if we're still alive.
Right. Comics keep you young. I plan on being alive.
Well, it better keep me very young. That's another 30 years, my friend.
Okay, well, that's going to do it, everybody. Don't forget to head over to YouTube and subscribe to the Comic Boom YouTube channel. Just do a search for Comic Space Boom ! Ring the notification bell so you know when new content comes out. Subscribe so you don't miss anything. Like this video. Conversely, if you check us out on YouTube all the time, but you haven't been listening to any of the interviews or Comic Source audio content, just go to your favorite app or favorite podcast platform, Stitcher, Google Play, iTunes, whatever it is. Do a search for the Comic Source and subscribe because episodes come out every day and you don't want to miss anything. So we really appreciate you guys joining us as always, and we'll talk to you next time.
See you later.